Hey guys, thank you for joining us today. As you know, we usually host these as webinars, but today, instead of doing that, we are jumping on a record because we want to make the most of your time, and we want to equip you with a few tools after this quick recording, but also give you some insights from some great leaders within the industry. So I'm first and foremost going to introduce myself and then have both of these individuals introduce themselves. And then we'll kind of jump into why we're meeting today. But I think you know from our title, avocation is key. So I'm Mel Proffitt. I work at MetTel. I'm a channel director in the Southeast region. I've been in the channel for 6 or 7 years now, and I just love the community. Excited to be here. I'm going to pass it over to you, Doug.
Hey everybody, my name is Doug Houghton. I work at a company called Alkira, and there I lead our global channel. Mel, to you.
Hi, I'm Mel Kolinski. I'm our, I lead our sales and partnership teams at Ostra Cybersecurity. Been here for about 3 years now. A big volunteer within the ACW community and a member of our board. So
Love
happy to be
And
here.
both of you have been in leadership roles for some time. And I know, Mel, you've built up some teams, and Doug, it sounds like you've built up some teams in the past. In our prep meetings, we've been able to chat about that. So that's really the reason we brought some of you guys in today, because we know you've had times where not only you've had to advocate for others, but you yourself have climbed a ladder through avocation and making sure that those around you knew how well you were doing. So we want to talk about a few things today. First and foremost, let's just set the stage. Why are we not self-advocating? And I kind of have my own little thoughts. I'm gonna read off a few, but I'd love if you guys want to throw anything in. A few things that stuck out to me when I was doing the research on it. The idea of being too needy or too this. So the replication of like being labeled, right? The lack of clarity of value. So I don't know that I feel like I'm worth what I'm asking for, or that I understand what I even need to ask for, because I don't see the value in my own self-worth. Were two that really kind of stood out to me. And then, maybe sometimes it might be like, I thought the discomfort was kind of it's kind of hard to brag about yourself. So those are some reasons I feel like we don't self-advocate. I want you guys to throw me some ideas on why you feel like people within your organizations or that you've seen don't self-advocate.
Well, there could be a couple of reasons too that are environmental, right? If the economy is not necessarily strong, people are a little less willing to engage in what could be a confrontational discussion. And then, and then the company itself at sort of a micro level might not be surviving, and it might be sort of an existential threat every day. And they may feel, if the person isn't entirely confident that they're adding a ton of value to the organization, or they've got some self-doubt about that, they may find that discussion not only uncomfortable and awkward, but then, it may be bad timing for the company in general.
Okay, I'm going to get back to that. I'm definitely going to come back and touch base on how we can work through something like that. But absolutely. Mel, what do you think? What's another reason you're seeing a lack of self-advocation or even avocation for others?
Yeah, I think personally, and hopefully I'm like at the tail end of women who experienced this, and some of the newer generations have less of it. Hopefully we're progressing in this, but I know when I started in my career, speaking up for yourself wasn't always not even rewarded, but could be frowned upon. And absolutely in a situation where I had to speak up for myself, and not in a way where I was advocating for a new role, but in a way where I was being mistreated by a leader, and I was very young, and I ended up being let go from that job because I spoke up. And so I think your experiences define obviously what you do going forward. Yeah. But I can't imagine I'm alone in having experienced that as a younger woman, especially back in late 90s, early 2000s. So
yeah, I think that is like the perfect way to roll into our first section here, where we kind of talk about a way that you've had to self-advocate for yourself. Obviously, you've got a great example there, Mel, where you've had to self-advocate, and unfortunately you lost your job from it. How did you overcome that and continue to self-advocate in the future? Because that sounded like it was a really bad experience, and we're hopeful that those experiences, like you said, are few and far between, if ever seen at all. What do you do now? How do you get through that and say, okay, it's not worth giving up and just not self-advocating. I'm going to keep speaking up for myself?
I think it's a few things. One, to your point, we've made a lot of progress. That's not the default anymore, right? To just not trust women for being women. We've definitely moved past that in a lot of regards. I don't think we're totally there, but we've done a lot better. So that piece has gone away. But I think also with experience and age, you gain first the maturity to understand where your talents and your skills lie and how to position those in a way that other people can see them and see the value in those. And I think too, you get to a stage where you have less of the fear of speaking up for yourself. You're just more confident in your own skin, and having people who support you on that journey and continue to push you to speak up for yourself, I think absolutely makes a big difference. I had a very positive experience recently where I went to my CEO and presented my thoughts on where we should be going with our team, and specifically with myself, and where I saw my role evolving, and essentially like pitched myself a promotion to him. And, it took us a few months to sort it all out, but we got there and here I am. So it's not always that you're in a tight spot. Sometimes it's for a very good reason that you get to go advocate. So
yeah, and right now it's not the best economy always. So Doug, I want to jump into something like in a personal experience with you, but to kind of go back to your question, like just because I think it was so prominent, like the economy could be a way, right, to not be like, in Mel, you probably ran into feeling a little like, ooh, is this the right time? So Doug, what's a great way to still stand up when you need, like sometimes I still got to ask. I haven't had a raise for 5 years. I still got to ask no matter how the economy is, no matter how, like, and I've earned it, right? So like, what do I do?
I think you assess your own value. It doesn't matter really what those environmental things are. If you are a key player inside of your organization and you, like Mel, go to leadership and say, hey, listen, without me, we would have done X, Y, and Z, and you document all that and you clearly assess your value to the organization, it doesn't matter what the environmental factors are, right? They may come back at you and say, hey, listen, we appreciate you self-advocating. We certainly understand your value. We will try to do something, but right now it's really bad. I think that's at least you had the conversation and advocated for yourself. And even though the outcome is not necessarily immediate, it's still something that you can look forward to. There are a lot of different, I think, to Mel's point earlier, yes, we've come a long way. And I think largely there are a ton more women leaders, just from a gender representation at leadership level. That's key, in my opinion, as we sort of grow up as a community. I think we all work in technology, and that women were fairly underrepresented for the longest time, and now you have a lot more women leaders, right? And I think that's good. The kind of crap that women had to put up with in most environments until very recently was sort of unacceptable in what we're working through. But I don't think by any means it's all gone, right? There's still ageism and racism and misogynism, as part of an institutional culture inside of some very large organizations that we do business with every day. It's unfortunate, and self-advocating is really important, and it's all about, in my opinion, one, I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. I know what I've done. And if I take those things into account and go advocate for myself, no matter the result, I can sort of walk out with my chin high. And if I have to walk out, then I do so.
I think you made a great point when you said, I know what I'm worth. And I think one of the things that a lot of people I see don't, or I guess a lot of people I haven't seen do it, and I have to remind myself and my friends around me, is how do you know what you're worth unless you're taking some notes? Nobody else is taking notes on you, right? Nobody else is taking a snapshot of what you've done this month. Nobody else is giving you the kudos. You might get a kudos in a team call because you closed a big deal or because you did something cool, and that's great. But like ultimately, that's just a little snapshot. Nobody's really writing that down on a board somewhere. So I've told a lot of people that I do it myself. Every month I try to write down the things that I would be really prideful of, or that I would bring to some type of promotion. Because maybe I'm not looking for a promotion now, but in a year when I'm looking, if I have that accumulation, I can almost look at my list and be like, let me pick the top 10 things. If I haven't done that, now I've got to think back, and I'm going to miss the little things, and I'm going to miss, you just can't remember everything. So do you guys do that? Is that something that you guys both do for yourselves? Is it something that you've coached others to do?
Mel, would you
I
like to go
wish I
first?
was as diligent as you, Monique. I'm nodding my head because I'm like, yeah, that's a great idea. I think about that
Thank you
every
very much.
year. Like, look, when you go to, not even just like, getting ready for a promotion or looking for a new job, but like when self-assessment time comes around for your annual review, right? Like, how much time do you spend going back and like,
Yeah.
what did I do? I'm like looking at, looking different things up and trying to like piece it all back together. So I wish I was as diligent as you, and maybe that's a good thing
You
to
got to put
start
it on the
working on for
calendar. I'm gonna
next
tell you
year.
that because I'll say it and then
Calendar's
I won't.
key.
Put
Yeah.
it on the calendar. You got it like on the whatever
Right.
27th of the month. And then I put a reminder 3 days later because sometimes I'll forget that the first one got overshadowed by something else. Did you do that, Mo? Did you actually do it? And sometimes it's a good thing to do with a glass of wine at night while I'm just kind of like listening to some music. So it's a great thing. It's always helped me. Doug, it sounds like you do it as well, or that you have
I
that.
do.
Yeah.
Well, but I have a funny anecdote, a funny story about that. So I started this channel with my colleague David Klebanoff about 4 years ago, and I'm very much just sort of a rubber road. I got out, I traveled 45 weeks. I was talking to Mel about this in the first year, and I was just very busy, and sometimes 40 to 50 meetings a week, right?
Wow.
Virtual or otherwise. And then David said, he came to me and said, leadership was saying that they're unaware of what you're doing. And I'm like, oh yeah, and I kind of, I'd run, this is my fourth sales team that I'm running, but I'd been an individual contributor for quite some time, about 5 years before taking this role. And I'd sort of gotten out of the habit of messaging up, right? Which is, here's what I'm doing. Because to me, it's about results. I could give a shit about, anybody else, what anybody else thinks. I want to do the job and I want to do it as
Right.
well. And I want to try and leave it out on the
But you
floor.
stopped self-advocating.
Exactly. So what I do now is every weekend on Sunday, I send leadership an email and it says, here are the things that we've done as a team. Here's the progress we've made. Here's how much money that we brought in this quarter. Here's what we're expecting. It's every weekend. And it's just saved me a bunch of, sort of the office, what's he doing sort of discussions.
Yeah.
Because it's, we're very busy. We often don't have time. And I like you. I keep things on my calendar, and then I've got dashboards inside of my CRM that represent what we do on a week by week basis. So there are now our team is 9 now, and there's a lot of different moving parts, and aggregating all of that data together is important in form of not only me advocating for myself, but also helping my team advocate for themselves, which I think 100%.
is also important. I think the more you can make those dashboards and those easy to read things, the easier you make it. Because, the idea isn't, I think some people will hear this and be like, God, I'm not made of time. I'm supposed to do what you want me to add something else to my calendar. And as a mom of like 2 littles, I think, that's where my mind's going. But ultimately, I think when you do this right and you use the right tools, like you're talking about, well, now it's not time consuming. And when you're doing it so on a cadence, maybe it's a little time consuming at the beginning once you're getting your rhythm or you're getting those dashboards set up, but it becomes very easy and it becomes so much more worth it in the long run for what you're able to give to yourself, to your team, to your ability. So we're going to shift gears and we're going to start talking about advocating for others and your team. And we kind of started with that just now, Doug, with you talking about you're taking this assessment, and sure, it helps you out, helps your team or your leadership see that you're doing. It also helps them see that your team is doing. So let's talk about some self-advocation. I'd love examples if you guys have them, but what are the ways that we hold ourselves accountable to self-advocate? Have you ever experienced a time where you've noticed maybe that you didn't self-advocate, and how did you reflect upon that, and how did you make sure that didn't happen in the future or anything like that? Tell me something that you want to share with our audience about why that's so important and what they want to walk away with. Looks like it's on you, Doug.
It's on me. Fair enough. So let's see. I've got sort of two points to make, because I've got folks that I help enable to self-advocate, and then I've got my own self-advocation, right? And so we'll talk about mine. So for me, it's really important to assess, like I said earlier, assess my value to the organization. It's, sort of measure twice and cut once, right? It's how many, I run a channel, so I'm always enabling my partners. How many enablement sessions have I done? How many opportunities that have evolved from those enablement sessions? How many migrate to advanced pipeline? And so assessing that data and then, having a discussion with my boss about a title change, about a raise, that always becomes sort of my proof point. These are the things that I've done to add value to this organization. Now, knowing the data and then having that conversation can still be hard for some people who aren't as, extroverted as us, and or who are not as aggressive or don't have the same relationships with their boss. So there's a second assessment that I kind of think about. You have to, when you take, so I have a really good boss. And we have a, kind of an open dialogue, and he gives me enough rope to sort of, let me go do my thing, right? And that's important. And he told me from the start. But if you have a difficult boss, then I think it's a different conversation. You have to not only assess your value to the organization and prove that, but you've got a timing issue also that you have to work at, right? You have to find a moment, maybe after you close a big deal, or maybe after you've done something that has substantively increase the value, your value, or the total value to the organization, then have the conversation. So you've got to look at the facts and you've got to pick the right point, but you also have to get through your own baggage. You need to be, and this is the hardest thing I think for most people, you've got to feel valuable. You've got to sort of move beyond this idea that, okay, well, I'm just really an imposter and I'm playing this role. You really have to get past that and have confidence in yourself to go have the self. And it's gonna be awkward. This is what you should walk in and just assume these conversations are gonna be awkward, because they all are, right? It's like, look, I want a $100,000 raise, go F yourself, Doug, is usually the response from my boss, and I take that with good measure. I'm still gonna ask, right? Because I've increased I've got my facts, here's my output, here's what my team is doing. And we're X percentage of net new logos, we're X percentage of the revenue. So embrace the awkwardness, be self-confident, understand your value to the organization, and have the proof to back it up, I think is the groundwork in advance of having that awkward conversation. For my team, this is the part that I really enjoy, because if you're not a jerk boss and you aspire to be a good boss, you're always checking people, and my team is so sick of me saying this. I always ask the same question. I'm like, how's your headspace? They're like, what is wrong with you? Why are you asking me about my headspace all the time? I'm like, because I want to check in. I don't, these are people I love a lot, right?
Yeah.
I've sort of, it's not unusual for me to think, yes, these are the people I love the most because I spend the most amount of time with them. I swear to God. And so I want them to do well, and I want them to self-advocate. But it's about, for me at least, it's about setting up an environment. And they're also sick of me saying, hey, this is a safe space. So whatever you want to say, even if you think I'm an asshole, I want you to tell me. Okay? Or if I have unreasonable expectations, I want you to tell me. And giving them that environment in which they can then come to me whenever they want is really important, and it's led to a really healthy team culture. Sometimes I am the
I would
asshole.
never have thought of advocation in that internal regard. Like I think about I always tag people, oh, shout out to Paul for doing whatever, shout out to Mel, and I love that aspect of advocation, right? I love giving people little shout outs that they wouldn't give themselves, so that leadership or whoever CC'd can know, like, they're doing work in the background. Look at this cogwheel, look how great it is. And I love that. But then to think about, like, my advocation for you is actually just to make sure you have this space to feel like you can come cry if you need to cry, or scream about something if you need to scream about it, or get excited about something if you want to get excited about it. And maybe it's not even work related. Maybe, but I have that space for you here. And I would have never even considered that as a avocation. And I think it's wholeheartedly a great way that you're advocating for the humans in your little space. And I always say being a manager, obviously, it's being a mom, it's being a therapist, if you're doing it right, you can manage, and managers are just managers, but being a leader, I should say, is all those other things where you're actually really mentoring the people underneath you, so I love that. I love that. Okay, Mel, talk to me about advocating for others and what your take on it is, because I did not see Doug's coming and I loved it.
Yeah, so I might pivot a little and not necessarily about my direct team, but what I would call like the team around me. So one of the reasons that I felt confident enough to go to my CEO last year and have that conversation is because a good friend of mine who does this for a living, by the way, so I think she has a slight advantage, Rima, really pushed me and was like, why are you not having this conversation with Andrew? And I was like, oh, because that's terrifying. But she and I, sort of talked through it, and she was right, as it turns out. And so I think it's important, especially as, again, a woman in a space where we're not the majority, and often we are reporting up into male leaders. And even if they're phenomenal like Doug and they're not assholes, it's still intimidating because it's still a little different. And I get nervous. Like my tell is I get hives on my neck. And thankfully, my CEO, who I adore, Andrew, he is colorblind. So he can't tell if I'm hiving out, which is great because he doesn't, he has no idea how nervous I am. But so to me, like having those real conversations with the people around you who support you, whether it's your internal coworkers or like that circle of, advisors. Some people say like their personal board, or however you want to phrase that for yourself. Yeah. But for me, it's my girl gang, like being able to give that support to each other and encouraging each other. I had a girlfriend who had been given this great promotion, and I was so proud of her. And the amount of money that came with that promotion did not add up to the amount of responsibility and, just all of the things that came with it. And so she came to me and was like, here's what I'm thinking about countering with. And I said, nope, you need to ask for this. And my number was much higher than hers. She was like, I don't know. This is, my husband said that this would be the safe play and this is probably what I should do. And I said, listen, what is the worst thing if you counter with a higher number and they don't like that number? The worst thing they're going to do is say, no, we can't pay you that much. Yeah. Nobody's going to fire you for speaking up. It's so crazy because
that concept, so like, what an easy concept, right? But until you almost forced her to like that in itself was, was your avocation for her. Like, no, let's do this. Like, let's go big or go home, you know?
Point it out.
Just show them. Yeah.
Show them. Here's what I do for you today. Here's what you're asking of me. Yeah. Here's what you pay me today. Here's what you're going to give me. Yeah. I want this. And I think being able to, again, have those open relationships with your, whether they're your girlfriends, colleagues, et cetera, and being able to help advocate for each other and teach each other how to self-advocate, because we don't all have that chutzpah.
Yeah, for sure. Doug made a good point. We're not all like, a little outgoing like this, right? So we're almost at time. So a couple things that we're going to make sure any of our audience members get. I'll pop it into a PDF document, but we're going to do some AI like self-advocation prompts that you can do. I'll give an example, but like help me write a very confident message about my accomplishments without sounding too boastful, right? Because we want to brag, but we don't want to over brag. So utilizing AI is a really great way for me personally. I know I've done that. Utilizing your friends, as you can hear from Doug and Mel, we're talking about how we're surrounding ourselves with humans that help us self-advocate, that we're self-advocating for those humans. Paying it forward will pay it backwards, so be that human for others, and I think they'll be it for you. I want to wrap up with any thoughts that you guys have around this that you want to leave our audience with. But I think we made a really great headway on just really great coaching and things that people can do for themselves to, track their own successes, make sure they're advocating in ways, even if it's just creating safe spaces or reminding their friends of how, amazing they can be. I think we've come up with a lot of really great things. What do you guys want to end on? I'll let you start, Doug.
Sure. I would end on, well, thank you for the excellent conversation. I would say that I read a great book a couple of years ago called Into the Magic Shop. It was about a Stanford neurosurgeon and his sort of journey from being impoverished to getting into Stanford and all of the things. But it starts with a sort of a riveting scene about, he's lost a vein in somebody's brain and he's done this 100 times before, and it's a really, life or death situation, and he just sort of reverts back and understands that he can do this, and he just needs to breathe and have self-confidence. So I like it as a sort of an adjacent resource to this discussion. It's called Into the Magic Shop, and I don't remember the author's name right now, but
we'll make sure we include it in our resource guide for sure. Yeah. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mel, what do you got?
Okay, mine is probably nowhere near as professional as Doug's, but there is this great docu-series on HBO called The Defiant Ones, and it's actually the story of Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre. And watching, especially Jimmy, who knew nothing about the industry, just submerge himself in it, and the things he was like, the jobs he was willing to take to go figure it out and go be the best is truly inspiring. I've probably seen that docuseries 6 or 7 times now, because it like fires me up to watch somebody else have that kind of grit and tenacity to just go after it for themselves. So go give it a watch.
I'm not gonna lie, guys, I love the fact that we're hitting 3 different things. We've got a great book, we've got a PDF document with some AI ideas, and then we've got a docuseries. I think it's a great way to give a well-rounded piece of education to everybody listening. So if you like this method of getting this type of education from our committee, please give us feedback. We know we usually do live sessions, but we're hoping this is a great way to digest whenever it's best for you. So with that said, thank you guys again for the wonderful conversation, and I hope everybody has a great Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mel.